Hello there, my name is Sixo. But more on that later, as now it's time for the 4th edition of Masterpiece Masterclass. The plan is simple. I'm here to take you on a journey of how I've approached my own personal Masterpiece Transformers collection, and which toys I've chosen for a spot on my shelf, both official and otherwise. The vision is to represent all of the various named characters from the original Generation 1 Sumbo cartoon in toy form, one way or another, and we'll be assessing the options to decide which is the definitive figure in each case. That's often easier said than done, with some characters having been attempted multiple times over, and new versions appearing all the time as well, but at the very least I can give you my own opinion on which toy appealed the most from the options available. Ultimately, this remains a truly personal endeavour, with both official and third-party toys having already been selected for the characters we've assessed so far, as we journey towards a complete Masterpiece G1 cartoon collection. Last thing before we begin, today's video is brought to you by TF Source. You'll find a link to their site in the description. It'd also be great if you could leave me a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll also leave a link to my Patreon where you can get access to a ton of perks, including exclusive galleries and early access to video efforts such as this. Additionally, you'll find a link to my Redbubble store where you can buy a large range of designs, including loads of my photos across all kinds of different merch. I'm uploading new ideas all the time, so be sure to check it out to get kitted out. Anyway, today we're looking at a fan favourite character to see which toy is the logical choice to represent him. It's Shockwave. One of the most distinctive characters from the original Transformers cartoon, Shockwave is the guardian of Cybertron, appointed by Megatron to supervise the planet in his absence, which of course he does in his own distinctive style. Instantly recognisable on account of his signature purple appearance, not to mention his deadly cannon arm and the rather freaky single yellow eye that flashes when he talks, Shockwave maintains a cool and menacing aura that has made him a hit with many fans of the cartoon. Regularly in touch with Megatron via comlink, Shockwave spends much of his time loyally carrying out his master's orders from afar, often acting from behind a computer if anything, although that's not to say he isn't ready for action when the moment calls.
I must protect Cybertron from all hostile threats.
We last see Shockwave in the 1986 movie, where he presumably meets his end in the battle against Unicron.
Decepticons! We're under attack! Scramble!
Whatever the case regarding his current canonical status, there's no doubt that Shockwave is an incredibly important character to get right in Masterpiece toy form, so perhaps it's no surprise that there have been a few attempts at him over the years already. The first of these was arguably one of the most influential and groundbreaking third-party figures of all in Fans Toys' Quake Wave, that being the company's first attempt to recreate a Masterpiece-styled character in this fashion. In fact, Quake Wave was so important to the unofficial scene that he proved to be the gateway drug for many collectors who had previously insisted on official toys only for their shelves, in how it brought to life an iconic character that had yet to be touched otherwise. True, the design is not entirely cartoon accurate, with the legs being a clear departure for starters, but still, long before there were multiple attempts at each character out there on the market, Quake Wave set the template in so many ways. Though reissued since, for many the original Quake Wave remains a watershed of Transformers collecting, the moment when the third-party scene immediately stood up and made a clear statement of intent about where it was soon to be heading. More attempts at the character followed, of course, with a rival unofficial outfit named Cloud9 putting out their own take in 2016 with their Quake Blast release. What's really interesting about this figure is that it's a very close approximation to Quake Wave in many ways. You can see that in various elements of the design, including the transformation, and although this was an altogether bigger and beefier representation, it proved to be an enticing alternative for many still searching for a potential Shockwave for their shelf. For my money though, there's only one real contender for which toy design takes the Masterpiece Shockwave crown. And that is Takara Tomi's MP29 Laser Wave. First released in 2016 as part of a slight shift in aesthetic for the Masterpiece line, MP29 brings the character to life in more accurate form than we've seen on any other Shockwave toy thus far. There are numerous elements from the cartoon model that this release captures beautifully, easily putting it ahead of its prior third-party competitors even on initial face value. That MP29 also proves to be an exceptionally well-designed, graceful and just all-round fun figure make it a real slam dunk then, as it's now hard to imagine any other release doing the character as much justice as this. I'll go one further and say it's no exaggeration that I still enjoy so many aspects of this toy that it continues to be a sheer delight every time I pick it up to this day. I honestly think it's marvellous. So good is Masterpiece Laser Wave that there's really only one thing that could possibly be even better, and that's the repainted MP29 Plus version. Yes, not content with putting out just one awesome take on the character, Takara Tomy went and did it again with this 2018 re-release, now in a shockingly dark purple, leaving collectors with a bit of a choice to be made. Stick with the original lavender or switch it up and go with the new colour scheme instead. Not an easy decision to make when they both look as good as this. So let's examine which of them could be considered more cartoon accurate. As it turns out, the choice might have been made for us, as although I initially thought that MP29 Plus was an attempt at a colour scheme more akin to the original toy, it seems that Takara Tomy always intended for this to be an anime version. That's evidenced by several elements on the figure itself, including the retooled Cyclops eye, now noticeably smaller to bring it more in line with Shockwave's cartoon portrayal, but also the clear presence of anime-style Decepticon tampos on the forearms. If you need more concrete evidence, then it can be found on the toy's packaging, where a back-of-the-box blurb even says that the colour scheme and retooling is specifically designed to mimic the animation. Helps if you can read Japanese, of course. The weird thing is that despite all of this, I maintain that the original release does a better job at representing cartoon Shockwave overall, with the lighter colour scheme being more accurate to a lot of scenes and in particular the 1986 movie. The colour on the hand seems more on point too, whereas the darker tones and grey legs of the Plus version specifically match the character's distinctive look during his first appearance in the pilot episode, More Than Meets the Eye. So one could argue that whatever Takara Tomy's intent, the original figure still does such a bang-up job at recreating cartoon Shockwave based on his general appearance that it's the most logical choice for any collection. The face sculpt is spot on, bringing the eerie presence of the character to life despite its featureless design, with that spectacular light pipe single yellow eye being the only element to suggest the quiet menace underneath. The chest is a real standout element too, and although it eschews a slight touch of cartoon accuracy, the translucent plastic finish looks really striking, as does the moulded robotic detailing behind it. Next you have Shockwave's signature cannon hand, which also contains a battery-powered light-up gimmick that can be activated by pressing a button on the side of the arm. It's a simple but neat feature which again recalls the animation to a T. Should you prefer, then you can rotate the arm round to position the connected hose on the front in reference to a similar gimmick on the Generation 1 toy. The hose itself is made of a pliable spring, meaning that it moves perfectly and looks very premium as a result. Then there's Shockwave's handheld blaster, a miniature version of his own alternate form, which can be pegged into his palm as a direct reference to the Season 2 cartoon episode Desertion of the Dinobots. Speaking of his hands, also included are a few alternative options, including a more typical appendage for the left arm should you wish. This is another direct nod to his first appearance in the pilot episode More Than Meets the Eye. Alternatively, you can swap out the right hand for a flat palm accessory, which might look like a recipe for a pimp slap to begin with, but it's actually yet another recreation of that same first episode appearance. Finally, there is a set of translucent purple hands, including both the blaster and the salute, which gives this toy a very different look overall. The clear plastic cannon hand is especially impressive with the light-up gimmick. Overall, there really are a lot of great things that can be said about this robot mode, not least of which is the way it captures the proportions and presence of Shockwave's on-screen persona. It really does feel like they ripped him out of the animation. Naturally, there's more to the story than meets the eye, as MP29 also does a brilliant job at recreating the character's alternate mode. The other good news is that the transformation to get there is a lot of fun too, and quite creative. I'm always impressed with how the backpack unfurls to become the barrel of the gun mode, even allowing for a very clever stand accessory in the process. The top-tier toy engineering employed here is just another example of how Takara Tomy can easily show up the competition given half a chance. The legs clip together in equally impressive fashion, with all parts of the alternate form feeling robust and solid. It's a simple but exceptionally smart process on the whole, and one to show anyone who grumbles about the complexity of Masterpiece toys. And finally, Shockwave's alternate form is complete. The so-called Vulcan cannon is a real sight to behold, looking every bit as impressive and cartoon accurate as one would hope from a modern Masterpiece figure. Again, the stand accessory formed from the backpack is extremely useful for display in this mode should you wish. I'm sure some won't appreciate the parts forming solution, but to my mind, it's one of the most accomplished ideas from this entire release. Naturally though, one of the most fun elements of Shockwave's alternate form is actually holding it in hand, because you're never too old to run around the living room with a toy ray gun. There's even a small trigger on the underneath, which when pulled activates a separate light-up gimmick in the front of the barrel. The effect is honestly quite mesmerising, one of the best such gimmicks I've seen in many years. Overall then, I really have only nice things to say about Masterpiece Shockwave, a design so great that it gave us two awesome versions representing one incredibly iconic character. Really, no matter which of these you opt for, you're onto a winner here, in my opinion. In truth, the Plus version does feel rather more robust in hand, with significantly tighter joints in the legs for one thing. It also has what I would determine to be the superior finish, with notable paint applications on areas such as the gun barrel as an added bonus. That said, I maintain my case for the lavender take on this toy being the more cartoon accurate of the two, despite the follow-up doing a good job at remembering the pilot episode. MP29's lighter tones just ring more true for me as a general depiction of the cartoon and the movie overall. Perhaps it doesn't really matter though, as honestly you could choose either of them and still be in for a treat, and this is one design I certainly don't mind owning twice over. All of which means we can go ahead and tick off another spot on the roster, as Shockwave joins Jazz, Hot Rod and Grimlock as being definitively represented on the shelf. Job done. So that's it for the 4th edition of Masterpiece Masterclass. I'll be continuing with this series, so let me know in the comments which character from the roster you'd like to see me cover off next. Also, don't forget to check out the video description below for links to TF Source's site, along with both my Patreon and Redbubble pages, where you can support me in exchange for all kinds of perks and merch. And as ever, I'd be very appreciative if you could drop me a like for today's video, please. Otherwise, that's it from me, so thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.